Expectation versus reality in architecture. This is the project that the architect presented to the government of India. A pretty cool building, and I'm sure people love that fish shape, but this is what they ended up building. It has nothing to do with it. It's pretty funny. This is the rendered image of the project, a very beautiful modern building with a textured facade, and this is how the final result looked, the same but cheaper. Again, let's look at a building constructed in India that is also beautiful and modern. But I think they ran out of budget while they were building it because the final result doesn't look anything like it at all. Imagine you buy an apartment before it's built and they show you this photo that looks great. And after several years when the construction is finally finished, they give you this. Honestly, I would feel really cheated. I wouldn't want it anymore. People who lost their lives while taking a selfie. Mitchell and Hania were on vacation in Portugal with their son Leo, who was 5 years old, and their daughter Sophie, who was 6. One of the couple's biggest hobbies was taking pictures everywhere they visited, and when they saw this cliff over 140 meters high, they couldn't resist. They jumped over the safety fence and took a selfie, but they didn't realize that while they were taking the selfies, they were getting closer and closer to the edge. Until there came a moment when they fell into the void, and all of this was witnessed by their young children, Amritpal Singh, 29 years old. In 2014, a small plane crashed in Colorado, and investigators found the cause was unusual. Amritpal, who was the pilot, was flying his small plane at night with a passenger. The passenger took flash photos of him, distracting him and causing him to lose control of the plane. The worst ways animals have lost their lives. Cynthia Anderson, 56 years old, the woman wanted to give her father one of her Doberman puppies, which was only 3 weeks old. She arrived at the airport, but they didn't let her board the plane since dogs under 8 weeks old are not allowed to fly. Upon realizing she was caught and couldn't board the plane, she had a terrible idea. She went to the airport bathroom and flushed the little puppy down the toilet, ending its life. Shortly after, she was arrested. I hope she gets what she deserves. Debbie Duran, a woman from California, was walking her 2 dogs with a friend when suddenly 2 pit bulls attacked them. Without thinking twice, the woman took a knife out of her purse and ended the lives of the 2 pit bulls. Kelly Sachs, who was the owner of the 2 dogs, not only lost her 2 pets, but she also had to pay Debbie a fine of $200 for having the dogs loose. What do you think about this? This is how Disney was announcing its upcoming movies. In Monster Incorporated, which was released in 2001, there is a scene in which Boo shows a Nemo toy to Sully, and the movie Finding Nemo came out 2 years later. But the sequence continues since in the previously mentioned Nemo, the cover of The Incredibles appears, which came out a year later in 2004. And in The Incredibles, Doc Hudson clearly appears, who, in case you didn't know, is one of the characters from Cars, which came out in 2006. In a scene from Wall-E, Carl Skane from the movie UP appears, which came out 1 year later. And in a scene from UP, the bear appears. Who would be the villain? In Toy Story 3, which would also be released a year later. Then, in Toy Story 3, there's a poster where you can clearly see Finn from Cars 2, which came out in 2011. And the sequence continues, but I do not have time for more. If you want a part 2, give it a like. Images that you have to see 2 times to understand. It might seem a bit silly, but the first time I saw this video, I thought it was a wizard flying in the sky. But if you want to know what it really is, just turn your phone around. I know you thought something weird about this photo. Did you think it was a girl in a strange pose? No, it's just a girl leaning on a glass railing. The first time I saw this video, I got pretty scared because I thought the guy was going head first straight into the rocks. Luckily he didn't, and he fell into the water. I hope I wasn't the only one who thought that the girl in red had an extra long and somewhat deformed arm, but it's just the design of the other girl's sweater. A man was lying in a park and saw a black swan and took a picture of it. When he got home and showed it to his partner, he zoomed in and realized it wasn't a swan. The worst ways people have lost their lives. Colin Scott, 23 years old, was taking a walk with his sister in a park where there were many hot springs. Even though bathing was completely forbidden and there were warning signs everywhere, the siblings wanted to take a bath. While his sister was recording, Colin checked the temperature of a hot spring, slipped, and fell in. His sister quickly notified the park rangers, but there was nothing they could do as the body had already dissolved due to the acidity of the water. Gerard Moon, 18 years old, was with a 17-year-old friend in the schoolyard at night. They were testing a research project they had made. They attached a skateboard to a rocket for propulsion, but the rocket didn't work as expected. Instead of propelling the skateboard, it exploded. Moon lost his life and his friend was very lucky to survive. The worst design fails in history. This girl bought a laptop because she needed it for online meetings. And when she went to test the webcam, she realized that the designers had the brilliant idea of putting it below the screen, and the only thing it focused on was this. The architect of this building deserves an award. One of the balconies took up almost the entire sidewalk. Even the city council had to put up signs because it was so low that everyone who walked by would hit their head. A guy saw this at the airport and couldn't believe it. When one door opens, it triggers the sensor of the other and it also opens and so on, constantly forming a loop. There's no mistake here. This looks like a completely normal kitchen, but wait, there's a toilet hidden in one of the cabinets. The best way to make use of the space. Amazing before and after photos. Two different doctors told this man he wouldn't make it to 40 years old. The photo on the right is him on his 40th birthday. This little dog completely changed his face when he was adopted. Believe it or not, this is the same girl. The only difference is the 2 hours of makeup between the before and after. This Chinese family set themselves a challenge to exercise together, and this was the incredible change they achieved in just 2 months. A man set out to clean this polluted and dirty beach, and after 96 weeks of hard work, he managed to leave it spotless. Is he really an example to follow? The drawing on the left is the first self-portrait this boy did when he was 13 years old, and the one on the right isn't a photo, it's also a self-portrait but drawn 10 years later. This sheep got the bath of its life. Photos that show the infinite power of time. Who hasn't tried to burn something using a magnifying glass and the reflection of the sun? Well, this streetlight does something similar. It's fascinating to see how it reflects sunlight, and as the sun moves throughout the day, it leaves a mark on the grass. He was born with a problem in his jaw, but after many treatments and patience, he managed to correct it. It's unrelated, but doesn't he look a bit like someone? One person noticed that people were pasting their advertisements on top of the others, so that person became curious to see what would happen if they made a hole. And indeed, it is impressive the amount of papers that were accumulating. Sitting against an unfamiliar wall is uncomfortable, as shown by these marks on the waiting room seat. After many years, they took down the pictures and decorations from the room, and they didn't even remember that was the original color of the wall. This is how the floor of an old bank looks where people wait to be assisted. The worst ways in which animals have lost their lives. Kristen Lindsay, a 31-year-old veterinarian, was sitting in her backyard one day and saw an innocent cat walk by. I guess the woman must have had some issues since no sane person would do what she did. She grabbed a bow and an arrow and shot the animal in the head, instantly ending its life. Then she took a photo and uploaded it to social media where she appeared happy posing with the lifeless animal. I hope they put her in jail and she never sees the light of day again. Paul Gardner, 21 years old, spent more than 1,000 pounds on this Chihuahua puppy to give it to his girlfriend who was getting over the loss of her grandfather. But when they lost sight of him for a moment, the animal got into the back of the recliner. The girlfriend's mother closed the chair without knowing the dog was there. The poor animal lost its life by being crushed. People who lost their lives while taking a selfie. Sylvia Rachel, a 23-year-old nursing student. The girl was out for a walk one night in the city of Seville when she thought it would be a good idea to take a photo on a bridge with the city in the background. When she was trying to take the selfie, she lost her balance and fell. Actually, the bridge wasn't that high. It was only about 5 meters tall. If she had fallen into the water, she likely would have been fine, but she fell fell onto the bridge's concrete base and died almost instantly. David Olson, 28 years old, was spending time with a friend by a river. They noticed the train tracks and decided to move closer to take pictures while taking a selfie. They didn't realize that a train was coming straight toward them. When they noticed, it was already too late because the train was very close. Even so, the girl managed to escape. David unfortunately was run over. People having a worse day than you. Part 20. He was doing some repairs on the roof of his house and the ladder fell down. The worst part isn't this. The worst part is that he was home alone and had to wait 3 hours for someone to come and help him. At 10 in the morning, he realized he had left the house like that and had been at work since 7. Now he knows why his coworkers were laughing the whole time. A girl left the cloth for removing nail polish in hot water so she could wash it faster later. But her brother drank almost all of it, thinking it was a coffee with milk. He stopped when he saw something inside. What better way to start the week than by washing your pillows? When this happened, the worker operating the loader disappeared quickly, knowing that there are several people who use them. That way, don't get blamed. Famous actors who have never seen their own movies. You all know Johnny Depp, who became world famous in part for playing Jack Sparrow. Well, the actor confessed on a television show that he had never seen Pirates of the Caribbean. Every time he attended premieres of movies from the saga, he would run out before they started. You all know the amazing Emma Stone, right? Well, she hasn't seen any of her movies either. She says it's uncomfortable for her to watch herself for a long time. She even confessed that during a family gathering, they were showing one of her movies and she had to leave them and go home. Surprisingly, Jared Leto has never watched the film that earned him an Oscar. The actor said he had never seen Dallas Buyers Club because it was such an intense and mentally demanding role that he preferred to stay away from it. People who beat the system. This kitten knows it can't be on the table, but no one ever told it that it couldn't be inside the bag. The grandmother asked for a formal picture of the baby and the parents sent her this. This dog was taught not to lean on the door, so he had to learn to walk on 2 legs if he wanted to look. The Chihuahua didn't want to eat the food, so the owners cleverly bought a stuffed dog and placed it near the bowl. Now the selfish dog always finishes the food in an instant. His older brother put a key in a drawer to hide things there. But at just 9 years old, the boy was very smart. He took out the top drawer and now he could see everything inside. This boy was on a plane and didn't have a stand to hold his phone to watch movies or shows. So he had to use his ingenuity and use 2 bananas, and it worked quite well for him, honestly. A woman filed for divorce after this hidden camera recorded what her husband was doing to her dog. This woman, named Alice, lived with her husband Tom and their dog Lucky. She loved her dog as if he were her child, since she had had him for more than 8 years. One day, when the woman came back from work, she noticed something strange. The dog had several wounds on his head, was crying, and seemed very scared. She asked Tom if he knew anything since he was in charge of the dog while she was at work, and he said he had no idea, he didn't know anything. Alice found this odd, as Tom alone cared for the dog, so she installed a hidden camera in the living room. The next day, when she came back from work again, the dog had new wounds, so she decided to watch the surveillance camera recordings to find out what had happened. She was speechless when she saw what her husband did to her dog, like if you want part 2. A woman asked for divorce after a hidden camera caught her husband's actions toward her dog part 2. As I mentioned earlier, whenever Alice returned from work, she found her dog injured, crying, and very frightened. Worried about all this, and knowing that her husband was the only one taking care of the dog, she asked him if he knew anything about what was happening. He told her he had no idea, that the dog had probably gotten hurt playing with other dogs while he wasn't looking. But this didn't make sense to her, so she installed a hidden camera to check if he was honest. When she watched the footage, she was horrified by her husband's behavior. She realized that her husband was abusing the animal while she was away, throwing it to the ground, banging its head against the floor, and many other things. She was completely shocked. Obviously, she asked him for a divorce and filed a complaint against him. After 2 months of proceedings, he was finally sentenced to prison. This man swam into a cave and never came back. But years later, the police discovered the incredible truth. Roger was a middle-aged man who had mismanaged his finances and accumulated over $60,000 in debt. In addition, he had just separated from his partner, whom he had been married to for more than 10 years, so to clear his mind, he decided to take a vacation. He was a fan of scuba diving, so he went to a local park called Vortex Springs. The man knew he needed a special permit to dive there, but he didn't care. After several days, the family members noticed that Roger still hadn't returned home and that his car was still parked in the same spot in the parking lot where he had left it. The police quickly searched for the man and sent divers into the cave, but despite their efforts, they couldn't find the body. So the parents hired independent divers, and what they found was so shocking it left them stunned. I'm out of time. Like, if you want part 2, this man swam into a cave and never came out. Years later, the police discovered the incredible truth, part 2. The police couldn't find Roger's body and the parents were very dissatisfied. That's why they decided to hire a group of 20 professional divers to search for their son's body. The divers spent several weeks searching every day for hours and hours for Roger, but they didn't find anything either. It was a great disappointment for all the family members and they began to lose hope. However, a few years later, everything changed in a radical way. The park owner where Roger vanished was found dead, all because he uncovered the truth about Roger. It turns out that Roger was killed while he was diving and the person got rid of the body. Then they bribed the park manager to keep quiet. Although there's a theory that says Roger planned all of this to disappear and start a new life without debts.